What's going on, FA Nation? Justin Fensterman back with you with another Fantasy Football Stock Watch report as we head to Week 16 of the Fantasy Football season. Let's talk about some trendy players, shall we? We'll leave COVID aside for now, but we're going to talk about those players on the field, trending up and trending down when it comes to fantasy football production potential. Let's get right to the action. We'll start with a few players trending up. Antonio Brown. This one a no-brainer because Brown's suspension is over and the Buccaneers are without Chris Godwin for the rest of the season, and Mike Evans and Leonard Fournette are also dealing with hamstring injuries, with both looking like they could miss multiple games. Remember, Fournette was catching passes as well. Brown received 11 or more targets in 2 of his last 3 contests. Tom Brady is the lone quarterback with at least 400 completed passes. He leads all QBs in passing yards, and he's thrown the most touchdown passes. And Brown goes from being potentially cut from the roster to the top quarterback's top target, elevating his production ceiling a ton. Up next, D'Onta Foreman. Derrick Henry is still on the IR, and while Dontrell Hilliard is also being utilized, Foreman has received more carries than him over the last few weeks. Hilliard and Foreman play a pretty even snap share lately, but we saw Hilliard utilized in the passing game more against the Steelers in Week 15. Foreman has received no fewer than 13 carries in 3 straight games, rushing for at least 4.9 yards per carry in 2 of those contests. Foreman has also exceeded 100 yards rushing in 2 of his last 3 games. Up next for Foreman and the Titans are the 49ers, and they've surrendered 12 scores on the ground this year. Final riser, Amon-Ra St. Brown. DeAndre Swift is hurt, and we don't know when we'll see him take the field again. And since he's been out, we've seen St. Brown's target share increase week after week since Week 13. He's received 25 targets in his last 3 matchups, scoring touchdowns in 2 of those games. He's caught no fewer than 8 passes in each of his last 3 weeks, and the Lions are going up against Atlanta in Week 16. Atlanta has let up 17 touchdowns to wide receivers this season, which is second most in the league behind the Cardinals, who he just faced. Atlanta's defense has also allowed 191 receptions to wideouts, which is the 4th most allowed by any team. Now for players trending down. Dak Prescott. Does Week 16 present a strong bounce-back matchup for Prescott? Absolutely, but we can't ignore that he's thrown as many interceptions as he has touchdowns in his last 3 weeks. Prescott hasn't thrown 2 touchdown passes in a game since Week 12, and he hasn't thrown 3 since Week 6. He's thrown for over 300 yards once in his last 7 games. It's not how often he throws passes because he's throwing plenty of them, but he's exceeded his 68.5% completion percentage 1 time in his last 5 contests. After Washington, the Cowboys face the Cardinals, who aren't easy to throw on, and then they end the season facing the Eagles, which will likely be a run-heavy offense engineered by Dallas. Up next, trending down, Chuba Hubbard. Hubbard was dealt a bad hand in this situation because the Buccaneers and Saints, who remain on the Panthers' schedule for Hubbard, are incredible at defending against the run. And as long as Cam Newton is under center, he'll continue to vulture carries and touchdowns away from Hubbard. Newton ran the ball 25 times in his last 2 games, while Hubbard ran the ball 18 times. Even if Sam Darnold ends up starting, the matchups are still awful for Hubbard, and a few more carries likely won't make a difference. Hubbard runs for just 3.6 yards per carry, and he won't be thrown to at all as Amir Abdullah has been active in the Panthers' passing attack. Abdullah has actually outsnapped Hubbard in 3 straight games. Final faller, Michael Pittman Jr. Pittman's stock dropping isn't all on him, as we've seen Carson Wentz throw more than 20 passes 1 time in his last 4 games. He's caught more than 4 passes once in his last 4 outings, and the Cardinals aren't the easiest to throw on, and that's who the Colts have next on their schedule. Pittman hasn't hit the end zone since Week 9, and while we're not going to go crazy and bench him just because, since he receives a team-leading near 24% target share, we may have to manage our expectations a bit regarding his production. Jonathan Taylor has run the ball 29 times or more in 3 of his last 4 games, and the Colts are going to continue to lean heavily on him because why not? That is your latest Fantasy Football Stock Watch, FA Nation. You're getting so close, we can almost taste being in the finals. We're in playoff mode right now, so because we're in playoff form, we are on that news just like stockbrokers every single minute of every single hour, because you never know when COVID will take half of your team away, but we're still going to barrel through any obstacle presented to us anyway, because that is what we do. Good luck.